Hey everyone, this is G, and of course, if you actually click on this video, you guys actually are eager to learn the ways of using the redemptor, or let's just say the gunslinger loadout for many of you guys want to call it that. And of course, I'm gonna have to work on another video regarding a Wraith guide that some of you guys might be curious about in terms of how to get better in sniping in general, but take it a little bit advanced for us, and rather than just doing it in Ballistic Overkill, but we probably can span to other games such as Destiny 2, because literally that game actually taught me a whole new perspective on how to snipe. And if you actually bring that over to Ballistic Overkill, it'll actually will pretty much transition very well. But if you actually want a video like that, just let me know in the comments down below. And for now though, let's actually get started with the content of this video. Of course, there's always this question that most of you guys might actually ask me: why do you love this load so much, and why do you actually play so excessively rather than you like, for me playing Wraith, because you know that's what I've been known for the first place before I actually switch over to using the redemptor? And the actual answer is pretty simple and complicated at the same time. And that answer is, in simple form, is the fact that that loadout, that specifically that I'm using right now, is probably one of the most versatile loadout they can actually use in the game of Ballistic Overkill. You can actually handle the close quarter range, you can handle the medium range, you can even engage from long range if you actually can hit pixel perfect towards your head. And if you actually keep on practicing landing body shots and headshots at the same time, you actually be rewarded probably the most fastest TTK value, or time to kill values, out of the whole game of Ballistic Overkills, right behind sniper rifles with their one-hit kill potential. But of course, we're not talking about snipers here, but we're talking about revolvers, or let's call it handcannons in this case, because they technically are, but in the game of Ballistic Overkill, they just simply call it pistols, but I think otherwise. But of course, it's not only the fact that it's these two weapons that stands out the most, but it's actually you as a player can able to maneuver them in a way that actually turns in your favor. And of course, it gives you the biggest advantage of mobility that no other weapon can give you besides the katanas, and also the fact that you can actually be pretty fluid with it, and you can also just be in the air and start shooting them from either while in the air, or you actually try to jump up and get a sniper shot from the top of such. And that alone actually does stand out for me compared to the rest of the weapons in the game. You can do pretty much almost the same thing with sniper rifles, but I kind of have to struggle with the fact that you actually have to take the time to get your scope towards their face just to shoot their face or their body. But of course, with the gunslinger loadout, all this emphasis is the fact that you actually try to land your headshots or quickly shoot at their body as fast as possible before they do the same to you. The first thing I like to teach you about using this loadout is actually you have to get to know your weapon that you're using. And of course, that's going to be the redemptor and the redeemer. And you also have to know what of its strength and weaknesses between these two guns, and also the scenario when to use them or not. But from my experiences of using this gun for over 3 years now, both weapons can probably fulfill the roles from if they were to be vice versa. But I think for if you actually want to start this loadout, you might want to stick to the criteria I'm about to give you and use it as a guide into understanding how the weapon operates and what application and when you can use them. The very first weapon you're going to get yourself used to is called the Redemptor, a 6-round, 100 damage to the body hand cannon, and if you actually shoot towards the head, that actually leads up to 200 damage towards the head. And of course, if you can land consecutively 2 at the same time, that enough can actually kill a vanguard and a tank, even they actually have their special skills to actually increase their HP. And this is probably one of the beauties behind this hand cannon, is the fact that its time to kill value won't actually increase due to the fact that a character can actually increase their HP just like that. And this also applies to even damage reductions such as Blizzard from tank, and also Guts from Berserker, or whenever he's in Berserker mode and your damage reduction is quite significant, the Redemptor still holds out with his precision headshots, and it still kills them with the same amount of bullets required just to kill them. And probably one of the standouts of this gun is the zero recoil that the gun has as compared to other guns in the game. And you can actually shoot from the hip fire 100% of the time, and all your bolts will actually land on that spot. But for those of you who actually might start using a gun, you might notice the gun might kick a little bit up, but if you actually still want to mimic that minor recoil that the gun might have, you can actually slap on consistency just to make the bullet hit straight on. But my suggestions behind that, I would not recommend it, because like if you actually make your gun a bit too much of a laser like accuracy, you're not going to have that much room for error when it comes to actually tracking your opponents. And if you actually don't have that minor recoil, just to, for instance, you might actually shot a headshot by accident because because of that recoil. And if you actually take that away with consistency, you're not going to have that forgiveness of the gun. So for those starters, you can start with consistency, but over time, start using without it. Then you're going to notice a much more significant difference with your in terms of aiming with the redemptor and landing those headshots. Or you can actually go for those quick body shots and kill them on the spot too. And in terms of the range, it actually can cover almost all of the range areas of this gun. So you can be a bit crazy like me sometimes. You can actually go in close range and just shoot a bunch of body shots at them. Also, you can actually stretch the engage to medium range, and you can actually engage where assault rifle might be without the scope, and also some SMGs level 2. And of course, if you're actually crazy enough like I would do sometimes in terms of doing a free-for-all and engaging from snipers, you can actually try to poke their heads or to buy from a really reasonable distance with the redemptor, just to, you know, either land a headshot at them if you can, or you can actually start poking them and letting them like, hey, you're getting shot, you better move out of position, otherwise you're gonna die. But for starters though, you're pretty much going to use it either in medium range or long range most of the time. As of course, like with close range, that's when the Redeemer comes into play. And the Redeemer is actually going to be your fully automatic hand cannon that allows you to fire all 6 of your bullets at a very much higher rate of fire, just to compensate that slightly little bit of lack of rate of fire of the redemptor. And of course, this is probably the best weapon when it comes to close quarter combat, as you probably can kill a approaching shot with a katana at a mere milliseconds. Or you can, if you could probably stretch it to medium range and just like kill a bunch of people from the distance. But the only problem is with the Redeemer is the fact that it actually has a very wide spread, and if you actually can't control the bullets where it goes, it might be all over the place, and you might actually leave yourself vulnerable for them to do a full-up gunfight, or they might just shoot you in the body while you're reloading and you might be dead on the spot. Now that you fully understand on these two weapons and how they function, we probably can move on and start on how to actually use them in real match scenarios, or some practices you can actually do just to develop your aiming skills with these two guns. And of course, my recommendation is, of course, the typical exercise of practicing your aim. But the thing I would suggest is that when you actually try to practice your aim, probably most of the time what I see players is they try to tend to aim with their mouse a lot, and then sometimes it might be either moving back and forth or left or right and such. Instead of doing that, try to aim with your movement keys, or in this case going to be WASD keys, and also with your mouse, try to track your opponent. And the actual reason the way I say that is because that you actually want to try to maintain a most unpredictable movement so that your opponent doesn't have the time to readjust their aim just in case you're jumping over the place, while you using the mouse just to keep track of your opponent, so you can actually keep that reticle towards their body or their head while you try to keep up with engagement. If you actually want to flex this a little bit of exercise, what I recommend is that you can actually either play games that offer PvE mode. In this case, for me, I actually play a lot of Destiny 2, and of course there's a lot of things I can do just to shoot enemies and try to develop a skill of tracking the enemies while I move and try to keep my reticle towards their body just to keep the alignment track with the enemies, and then try goes for the shots. But of course, there's people out there that doesn't actually have access to Destiny 2. But by the way, the Destiny 2 base game will actually go free to play in October 2nd. So if you actually didn't get a chance, just grab the game when it comes out, and then you actually can actually have fun and have those opportunities to practice your aim. But in case that's for now though, you can actually just go to, you know, random match and then try to practice your aim around your opponent. And let's just say particularly a camping raid that's like staying in the base, try to move around them in a circle and keep your reticle towards around their bodies so that you can actually develop your aiming and tracking skill at the same time. And the next thing you actually have to develop is to get used to the fact about their body level. So what I actually mean about body level is the fact that you actually have to adjust your mouse just to keep in line where the head is or the body is. And of course, in most games in general, all of that portion of the hitbox will remain consistent, and there will never be a time when like the head might be a bit too high, too low than it should be. But there are a few exceptions when certain situation calls for it, but most of the time you're probably gonna have your engagement in even ground. And as a starter, don't try to move around the mouse too much from up and down or diagonally around the screen. Otherwise, you won't actually get used to the center of the screen. So if I actually draw a circle towards the middle of the screen, you actually see the fact that I won't do any radical movements unless it's necessary, and try to keep my aim as straight as forward as possible, so that whenever there's an enemy that shows up, I actually have my gun at the center already in hand and gain advantage of having my gun point at them already before they do. The next following tip will actually depends on you if you can actually handle the situation or not. And of course, there will be sometimes that you're under fire, and there's always this instances that like you don't really know what to do because you're panicking, you're being shot, you know what to do. And of course, this tip is going to be quote-unquote courage under fire, which is a play skill for Vanguard, but that's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about you being calm while being under fire, so that you can actually assess the situation much more carefully. For new players to actually start playing the game, of course, it's pretty normal for anyone that's being shot at, and then you as players like, oh my god, this person's shooting me. What do I do? Do I actually go back? Do I shoot engagement? Do I run away? Just remember, you actually have a head to think about on how to deal with the situation. So you actually have to think about what option can you take while you're being shot. So the questions that you'll like to ask yourself while you're keeping this engagement is like, is the person shooting me at a close range or is he far away? What type of gun is he using? What character is he using? Is it possible for me to escape and reassess my situation? Is there a scenario that I can actually lure him to a spot that might make me feel much more comfortable to engagement? These are the type of questions that you have to ask yourself all the time whenever you're actually about to reach an engagement, because most of the time I see a lot of people just try to go right in and hope for the best that they may kill the person. But since you actually are limited to 12 bullets total, and not only your aim skill has to be on point, but also your decision making is also crucial into making this loadout successful. And if you see most of my marksman gameplay with the revolvers, there will be some times that I can feel like I can charge in towards the opponent with the current stats I have, or if I'm low on health and someone's chasing me, this is when I actually take the runaway approach and try to find a way to recover myself with enough HP so I can continue the engagement. Or you can actually try to outsmart them by luring to a specific location towards, like, let's just say I actually go play Noxmall and you see that tree around that, there's a little place you can jump into. I can just jump in there and try to get myself in positions, and if they follow me, they actually have to play the guessing game to know where I am, while I actually have the element of surprise on my side, and I probably can know where he is approximately. Then I probably can just end them on the spot, and I can keep on moving on in pretty much any gameplay modes when you play the strategy in. Of course, there will be some times that you make the wrong decision, but if you make the wrong decision, the only worst thing is you're gonna die, and you actually get to learn from that mistake that you made. So when that situation happens next time, you can probably assess them a little bit more better in terms of if you actually can access them much more carefully and see what are the options that you can do. So you can probably just do this strategy in any other character, but limiting yourself to limited amount of ammo, like using the twin hand cannons, which only give you 12 bullets total. And this actually literally strips the luxury of having excessive amount of bullets, because, like, you know, if you're actually using fully automatic weapons, you actually have the luxury of a lot more forgiveness, because when you try to aim with the, let's just say, an auto rifle, all you gotta do is just readjust your reticle towards them so that you can actually catch up towards the movement and kill them on the spot. But with a redemptor or the redeemer, however, each bullet has to make its mark, otherwise this value will actually fall tremendously. And there will be some times that aim alone can't actually help you, and your decision making might actually give you a much more better upper hand compared to those who actually have godly aim but never assess their situation very carefully. Let's just say, for example, if I'm playing a Wraith with a Curator, and of course me using Curator is going to be like me using absolute trash gun, because I never considered it as a sniper rifle in the first place, and I get to shoot every single opponent at the body just by using the laser as my guide, and never consider what's going to happen around my surroundings and go on kill streak. And of course, if I'm just charging in towards the base, try to get as much kills as possible, and I never worry with my surroundings, I'm actually end up being stuck stuck with all the enemy players around me and then basically screw myself just like that. In my personal opinion, my philosophy is the fact that it's much better for you to survive much longer rather than just going for those kill streaks, because if you're actually being too over aggressive and you don't have the capabilities to pulling it off, it will punish you greatly, and this will actually in turn of lose your matches quite more frequently because you're not trying to engage with your surroundings and using that to your advantage, or if it might put you in a disadvantage, you're not assessing on how to get around that. And that concludes the video of me explaining on how I use marksman and some of the things that you might implement not only for Ballistic Overkill but for other games that you might actually play too. So if this video helped a lot, just let me know in the comments down below, and I hope this helps you a lot. And until next time, this is Fierce Emoji, and I hope you have a nice day.